very hopeful that if we can get them the information that they need, maybe we'll get lucky on this one. That is my report.
Thank you. Tom Burnett?
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Yes, we just wanted to inform the council, the utility billing group has what's known as a hardship fund, where citizens are able to apply for some assistance from this hardship fund. This hardship fund comes from donations from other rate payers as we go along. At this point, our hardship fund is dwindling very, very low. It's below $1,000 right now, and we try to help out at about $175 per incident. So we're running a little bit low. So as a group, a utility billing group, we're going to be sending out a flyer with the utility bills in hopes that we can get some contributions to come in from the citizens. But we also wanted to gauge the council's interest in wanting to contribute some funds to that account if we were at a low point. So we wanted to know if this was something that would interest the council and we could bring it back as an agendized item to talk more about.
I would like to, how's the council feel? Anybody object to having it as a discussion item? Please put it on the agenda.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Thank you. That's all I have.
Wendell?
Just two items. First of all, we wanted to let you know that we've completed several pieces of paving that we needed to finish on 78 South between Airport Road and 5600 West. Those have been completed. We've restriped the roadway so that it's a 5-lane roadway from Airport all the way out to the roundabout on the west, almost to Mountain View Corridor. In the spring, what we're going to do is rotomill that entire area and overlay it. So we'll have a brand new road from Airport Road all the way over to Mountain View Corridor almost. The second thing is that we're just about done with 5600 West from 78th to 7000 South. We expect in the next week or 2 weeks that roadway will be finished. As we get a more specific date, we'll send that out to you so that you have that. That's all.
Thank you, Wendell. Chief McElwain?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just have 3 items. First, I wanted to just announce that we have a CERT class scheduled for November 7th and 8th. And we're excited because we have actually filled it up. Had great success in recruiting people for it. So I would just want to make that statement. We'll be doing another one in probably March, and we'll start advertising for that as well. We're trying to do them about every 3 months as long as we have participants to attend. Second item, I just want to report back and let you know that we done the UTA drill down on 7800 South. I believe it was very successful for the participants from West Jordan City. That was Public Works, the Fire Department, and the Police Department. We learned a great deal if we had any type of incident like that, and it was beneficial. I hope that we did close the road. It was late at night. We didn't get any complaints directed to us. I don't know if you guys heard of any. If you did, we apologize, but it was a successful drill. And then lastly, just an update on the rebuild of Fire Station 54 and the police substation. I believe that by the end of first week in November, that building will be all dried in, and they'll be working on the inside. So it's moving along nicely and within budget. So that's it.
Good. That's great. Chief Diamond?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, just a couple events to bring you up to date on. On Wednesday the 29th at 4:30, we'll be doing another badge pinning ceremony. We are rapidly hiring people. 1 officer and some of the support staff will be recognized there. Also, on the 30th, we will be graduating our most recent Citizens Academy, and that will be at 6 o'clock on the 30th over in our community room. Then finally, I just want to let you know our K-9 unit again competed in Las Vegas. It's an international competition. One of our K-9 teams, Ian Adams and Pyro, came in 2nd place in the drug building search. And then we also had Officer Smith and his K-9 partner Duke. The competition was pretty fierce. There was a 250 points possible. They take the top 5 people as winners. And Tom Smith's score with his K-9 partner was 249.5 points. So the spread between first and fifth place was less than a half a point. So a lot of good competition there. Our canine units did very well there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. City Council, we'll start with Councilmember Stoker, and would you, do you want to talk about the Envision Utah that Scott Hallett's spoken with you? Okay, please.
I was just about to mention that. Robert Groves, who's a former director of the U.S. Census, is working with Envision Utah. They've developed a program that uses smartphones and tablets and has kind of formed a game of sorts to get people to express how they want their communities and their neighborhoods to be and develop out. And it's a terrific resource that's been developed to help kind of envision what the residents want their city to look like. Robert Groves, he would like to come to the city to make a presentation of some of these things that he's developed. He actually tore his rotator cuff and is going in for surgery on Friday, so it'll probably be a little bit. But he was looking at doing that really soon. He wants to kind of launch that within our own city. With the growth that we have on the west side, it'd be a terrific opportunity to kind of to feel out how the neighbors want their city to look as it builds out. So there's that update. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention, for those that were paying attention to KSL this morning, there was a story about a family, a Van Leuven family. This family lives just a couple streets over from me. It's a young family, and they're terrific people. They've got a 4-year-old that is suffering from leukemia and has a matter of days left to live. And so the family is basically crunching all of his favorite holidays into this last week. They've done Halloween, they're doing Christmas, and they're doing an early birthday, all within the next week or so. The family has set up an account, I believe, with Cyprus Credit Union to help pay for some of his medical expenses. But right now, I think any support this family can receive from anybody would be a terrific help as they go through this last week with their son. So for those that are interested, it was well reported in KSL, the information regarding the charitable account fund setup form is also with the KSL article.
Thank you. Councilmember Southworth.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Haga.
Nothing, Mayor.
Councilmember Hanson.
Nothing.
Wow. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything myself. I wanted to dovetail into Councilmember Stoker's thought. Just an idea, and I was going to ask Chief McElrath about this one later, but I'll just do it really quickly right now. If it would be possible for the fire department to help out with that family in any way, maybe if we can find a Santa who wants to show up with a fire truck. I know they're doing that. Was it Friday?
Can I comment?
Absolutely.
I apologize. I left it out, and thank you, Councilmember Stoker and McConaughey, for bringing it up. We have worked out the details as of this morning. We'll be delivering Santa Claus on Friday from Station 55 to his house. So we've done that. We're going to work with Kim Wells as well, and the family's done a great job in that neighborhood. I know the Halloween thing they've done, and they're trying to get each holiday. So we are lined up. We have a Santa Claus already lined up. It's got the suit, everything, so we're good.
Way to go. Thank you. I just had one item this evening. I wanted to report on the Western Growth Coalition met on Monday. The car dealerships presented their opposition to the bill that we've been battling for over a year now on the law that prohibits cars lots within the county and 15-mile radius. I just needed to state that I thought we made some good arguments against that particular law, and I'm really tickled that, you know, the Fox Neat Pignanelli team are on our side as lobbyists for that effort. I think we're going to get somewhere this year, legislative session. So that's all I had. We will move now to citizens' comments. We do have 3 public hearings tonight. If you're here to speak on any one of those items, 7A, B, or C, it would be appropriate to speak later, although you could speak at this time. All others, you would be allowed 3 minutes to speak on whatever subject you choose. And I have several that have signed up, and we'll start with them. Bernice Lamb, please step forward.
Hi, we live on Buena Vista Drive, in between the high school and the other end on 22nd. I put in a petition a year and a half ago to get speed bumps put in, because we have the high school kids about 20 after 7 that speeds through our yard, through our subdivision. And at 20 after 2, it's even faster, because I think they get their energy back up to speed through there. And I mean, everybody in the neighborhood signed the petition to get speed bumps. We got a new road, they didn't put no speed bumps in. But Sugar Factory Road, there isn't even a throughway, and they've got speed bumps over there. Over by Jordan Landing, there's another subdivision that has speed bumps, and it is nothing like ours. And if there's any way you guys could look into it, because we've tried everything, and this is the reason why I'm up here now, is to try to help us with speed bumps. Because we've all got kids up and down that street. And I mean, it's like a raceway at 20 after 2. And it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I've even heard that some of you even go through that way to get to here, from 27th West to here. It's like a through street, and we hate it. And now we've got a new subdivision that's coming in that's going to make it even worse. So if you could help, it'd make a difference to all of us on that street. And thank you very much.
Bernice, could you give us your address so it's for the record?
It's 2662 Buena Vista Drive. So see, I get it right from 27th when them kids hit it all the way down. And when you've got grandkids and great-grandkids that wants to play out there, I can't even have them in my front yard. I've already had a car through my front yard. Just can't do it. And we just want, if it's just 2 to slow them down a little bit, it'd help. So thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Yes.
Maybe I suggest if maybe Wendell, we could get further information to Bill so that they can pass along the traffic mitigation. Okay, you're on it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Backman.
Hi. I'm wanting to make some comments about the flooding on Constitution Park and the neighborhoods that are around it. And I live in West Jordan. I live in Oker Shadows. The connection that I have to this is my son is Victor Riding, and Patty Riding is my daughter-in-law. Pam is her mother. And we want to talk about this house and what I have personally experienced with this house. The storm drain system, you know, the city, they've taken the stance that it's only rain. Well, it's not just only rain. The rain goes into the storm drain, and then it sits for a minute, and then it backflows. And that's what floods the circles. I'm going to get one of the first elephants out of the way. Yes, my son has a negative flow driveway. It's not real steep, but it is. But I have a picture to show you that that water is 2/3 up on his front lawn, pushing towards his house before it even hits the driveway. In 1984, Victor and Patty, they bought this house, or the house was built. They bought it in 2008. The first thing that happened was the neighbors came over and said, "Hey, welcome to the neighborhood. Have you ordered your sandbags yet?" And we were like, "What? Sandbags?" And they said, "Yeah, when it rains, that storm drain backs up and it floods the circle." So, yep, we brought in the sandbags, and that first summer, we had our little granddaughter in the circle in my son's kayak paddling around the circle. At first, we thought it was really a freak to be that deep. It turns out it wasn't. We fought that water every year at the same time of the summer since 2008. We're talking, we've got a pretty good track record. We're talking 6 years now. In 2011, the backflow from that storm drain was so great that it overtook the sandbags and it destroyed the inside of the house 3 times. We had UDK come in and dry out the home the first time. That was when I first met Shannon James, who worked for the city. She introduced herself as the risk management person, you know, just gaining information. And I've got some pictures here that I'm going to show you. I have a picture of when I first met her, and UDK came in. She orchestrated some information for us to deal with it, and she said, she gave us instructions. We took pictures like she told us of the items that were ruined. Have I lost my 3 minutes? Oh my gosh. Anyway, to make it short, 2011, 3 times, just over $12,000. We had to fight you tooth and nail to help with those bills. Gebhardt got involved, and those bills were paid. We were told it wouldn't happen again. A berm was installed on Constitution Park. I'm going to take Pam's 3 minutes, okay? And then she's going to make some comments. Anyway, the berm, you guys put the berm in. We were told that that would be, you know, a solution until you could get your 70th South, this big project, involved. The floods came again. The house got hit twice. I was told by Shannon James that the city's stance was they weren't going to help dry out the house, and she just flippantly told me, "You can get a couple of shop vacs and you'll be fine." So my personal experience with her is not really well. We finally figured out a couple of days later that she actually was a city attorney. It was pretty shocking to us. This project needs to happen. They need the help. There is no way. This is 2011. Victor and Patty are now in Montana. They've been transferred. We have tenants in the house. The tenants in that house, they had a car parked in the driveway. They were out of town. The entire car was flooded. We had to take care of that mess. We can't keep taking in the water that's hitting these houses. And then I just have one more thing that I'd like to say. As I was very excited that you guys are contemplating doing this project, we saw light at the end of the tunnel. And then I saw another article in the West Jordan City Journal, and this is a cool project too. It deals with changing the face of downtown West Jordan. Cool project, but if you don't change the infrastructure of those storm drain systems to accommodate Jordan School District going to Jordan Landing, which puts more water pressure into the storm drains, you're going to totally kill the rest of the houses in that subdivision. So please put this through and then have fun with your new baby. That is a good project. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda Thomas. Okay, that'd be great. Pamela Markinson? Oh, okay, sorry. David McLean. Okay. June Christiansen? Okay. Ralph Mendel? And Scott Reynolds? Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on a non-public hearing item? Now would be the time. Allow 3 minutes for that discussion. Seeing none, we will close the citizens' comment portion and move on to consent items.
That's not for you.
Okay. I've had no one ask for anything to be removed consent. Is Councilmember Southworth?
Mayor, I move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Southworth and a second by Councilmember Nichols. Discussion to that motion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Stoker,
Yes.
Councilmember Southworth,
Aye.
Mayor Robb,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson,
Yes.
Councilmember Haga,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
Okay, thank you. Our city manager is returned now, and I didn't know, Bryce, if you had anything, and we kind of skipped over your portion.
Thank you for letting me be tardy, Mayor. Just wanted to let you know, tonight you have 4 items on your consent agenda for alcohol permits at Pioneer Hall. After staff's done some research, if in the future you would like to make this an administrative approval process, there would be no problem with state law to do that. And so I'll just mention that, and if you feel inclined to have us pursue making any changes to the law that would relieve this from being on your agenda every time that people make this application, it could make it a little speedier for the citizens. We wouldn't have to wait for council meetings and so forth. Let me know, and we'll be happy to oblige if you think that would be a customer service thing that we could do. And the other item, and Melanie, maybe you already brought this up about the strategic plan dates. Oh, okay. It appears in talking with our staff and from the emails that from you that have responded, the 15th and 16th of January seems to be the best date for the strategic planning meeting. Is that a consensus of the council?
Anyone opposed to that?
We will move in that direction. The other question is would you like us to then move the council meeting that would be on the 14th regularly up 1 week so that you don't have to go through a council meeting and then show up the next morning to see each other again for 2 more days? Or what's your feeling? And to see us as staff? Is that okay if we go that direction? Melanie could just...
Anybody opposed to moving that to the first week?
Yeah, what that date would be is January 7th, so the holidays would be all over, and so it'd be January 7th and then the last Wednesday in January.
Make it so.
We'll do that. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we move to the first public hearing item. Receive public input and consider for approval Resolution 14-200, amending the budget and transfer up to $4 million from the solid waste fund, where there is a surplus, to the storm fund to accelerate projects to improve the city's storm drain infrastructure. Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is, I'll be brief as we've talked about this several times throughout. This resolution brings us the option to transfer up to $4 million from our solid waste fund to our stormwater fund. We, of course, have a surplus in our solid waste fund, which we've talked about before, and of course the decision that's before you is, number one, do we want to transfer this solid waste money to the storm water fund, and then number two, if you decide to do that, how much? It is the staff's recommendation that we're more on the conservative side. We would like to only see $3 million transferred. We could live with 3.5. We really struggle going up to the full $4 million. One of our concerns is, of course, not having enough money in there to cover the solid waste if something happens, some kind of extraordinary event happens, and having to come back to you guys within a short period of time to ask for that rate to be raised. So, like I said, my questions for you as council is, number one, do you want to make that argument? And then number two, how much? Once these two questions are answered for us tonight, this allows myself and Wendell and his capital projects group to go back and examine how we handle the rest of the issues within stormwater. We really can't start making that plan, and until we have that, we are hoping that this will happen tonight, and we'll be bringing in a later agenda item more information on some another solution to help even further with the stormwater projects that we have out there. Of course, I would like to remind the council that it is the intent with this transfer that $500,000 would go towards small projects within the city, and then that $2.5 million, everything above that, would go towards the 70th South trunk line. So that's briefly what my presentation is. Just wondering if you have any questions for me before I let the public speak.
Councilman Haga.
Yeah, could you explain, I know, but for the public's sake, would you explain what an interfund service fee is on our budget here?
Absolutely. The interfund service fee is basically what would be called in the world overhead. We have, for example, my staff does the billing for things like solid waste, water, and everything else. So the amount that goes towards solid waste in that billing is charged to my budget, but then I receive revenue back out of the solid waste fund to cover that. So there are the overhead things like, having myself and my staff work for you, the city manager, even you guys, as far as that goes, go into that direct service fee, a portion of that. So that's what that does, is it covers the overhead for that kind of thing, so they don't have to have their own independent lawyers, finance people, everything else.
And now you said direct service, so direct service, there's actually two transfers.
Yeah, there's two. Direct service would be my billing people, because they're directly doing something related to stormwater. An indirect service would be the rest of my staff, myself, and a few others that are doing accounting work that we don't directly relate to what they're doing.
And then Ryan, I don't know, this was one question I was going to ask you before the meeting, but how many garbage cans and how much do they cost a year? Do you know those numbers?
I don't know what the garbage cans, like I said, we don't replace garbage cans every single year. I know that we're in the neighborhood of, and I'm guessing here, maybe Wendell could help me, and I don't know if Dave's here. Do you know how many, Dave? How many garbage cans we have? Over 25,000 we have throughout the city. That was the number I was thinking of. We have over 25,000. And that would be 25,000 people who have garbage cans, so they have the 3 cans.
So how many do we replace every year? We have $100,000 difference here. Just wondering why there's a difference in how many we
It just depends. A lot of times it depends on how many of them go bad. We have, one of our famous things is around the 4th of July, we lose a few trash cans when people decide to throw their fireworks that weren't quite extinguished out there. So those are times when we'll lose them. It just depends on how many we happen to lose during that year, and the age of the cans as you go throughout. Some of the new neighborhoods, the cans are going to last longer than some of the older neighborhoods that have been there. It's just dependent upon that. We don't really have a rotation cycle on that. We just replace them as needed.
Now, one last question, Mayor. It was mentioned last council, I think, that there was a reduction in solid waste utility fees. When was that? When did that happen?
That was not this past year, but the year before. It was the first year I was here, so that would have been the 2013, I believe. That was effective on July 1 of 2013.
But it shows. Well, I'll talk about that later. So that was 2013. You're saying?
Yeah, it was just this last year that we had that reduction. Yes.
Councilmember Southworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you tell me, Ryan, you mentioned in here that you have, there's a proposed a $5,000 bond. What is the funding source to service that bond? Or $5 million, excuse me, 5,000.
Well, it's a proposal at this point. We don't really have the funding source, and we'll talk about that in item 8A as we talk about that. That's one of the things that we're waiting on is if it's going to be, if you don't pass anything, we may have to do a $9 million bond versus a $5 million bond. So once we have that number finalized, we would look at the funding source, and we can talk about that a little bit more as we get into the bonding. But right now, we would try to fund that as best we could through current revenue expenditure differences, and then we would have to, as staff, come back with some proposals to make up the differences at that point.
I can understand that we would talk about that when we get to this other item.
Yeah.
It might not be a consideration for everybody else, but I'd just like to know if we're laying out a plan that we're going to take money from solid waste and put it towards a project, and we say we have this extra $5 million we want to bond for. To me, that's important to know. Okay, now how are we going to? I want to make a decision up front how I'm going to fund and service that bond.
Well, and that's the tough question because there's several different methods we could go through to fund that bond, and I mean part of it could be we set aside part of this $3.5 million to cover payments on that bond throughout. Like I said, at this point there's several different methods we could go through, and that's why it's hard to say. I mean, there's the easy method, which is when you talk about anything. To get more money, you do one of two things. You either get more revenue or you decrease expenses. I mean, that's simplistically, that's the way we do it, but there's a bunch of course, moving pieces that come into both of those. So to answer that question is difficult until we have the answers to, of course, what I've spoke about before, question 1 and 2. Question 3 is very hard to answer.
Sure. So let's say just hypothetically, is there revenue sufficient currently in the rates to cover that bond?
No.
Okay. Have you run those numbers? Do you know about what is our ceiling as far as the revenue we currently bring in on the
What we would have right now as we currently sit, the ratio we need to cover a bond is a 1.25 ratio. Our current ratio is 0.61.
Oh, wow.
So, and in fact, it's up here on the screen, and like I said, we'll talk more about that as we go along. For a 10-year bond, it would be a 0.61 ratio. For a 15-year bond, it would be a 0.84 ratio. Wow. And, if you were to go the revenue side of things, it would take an 87-cent increase to bring us to 1.25.
87?
Yeah, 87. We would go from 402 to 489.
Really?
To cover that 1.
That covers the $5 million.
Yeah, that would be a 1.25 ratio, which would mean that we'd have 1 to cover and then 0.25 overage to cover others.
Everything else, yeah, correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Stoker.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask the same question that Councilmember Haga asked about, just the conversation we had earlier about the reduction in the rate. But also, I think it's worth mentioning how we ended up with a $4 million surplus in the first place.
Yes.
Just for the benefit of everybody.
Okay. How we ended up with this is council, probably approximately 10 years ago, was under the impression that we as a city would have to keep a fund balance and raise money to pay for a transfer station. Once the current landfill was full, we would have to have a transfer station to be able to, of course, transfer our trash to another location. And that West Jordan would have a piece of that and have to pay for that as we go along. So council built the rate upon building the fund balance to be able to pay for that transfer station. As we've gone along and spoken with the Transjordan landfill, they have been saving money to pay for that transfer station in their budget as it currently sits. So both the city and Transjordan landfill have been saving money for this transfer station. Transjordan landfill has indicated that they would take care of that through the money that they are saving, and to verify that, I get the Transjordan landfill's financial statements. Every year they do have a restricted balance in there for a transfer station. So I have confirmed that through their financial statements. that does exist. So now we have the extra fund balance that we thought we were going to have to use a transfer station for, and we don't. So we have it as kind of extra sitting out there.
Thank you.
No problem.
Last question from Councilmember Haga.
Just to clarify, Ryan, now, this chart here is not what we're deciding.
No, this is a different chart.
Would you explain that to the?
Yeah. At this point, this chart is something that will actually come up in item 8A. It happens to be up there right now. It will come up in 8A, and we'll discuss that further as a bonding solution, yes.
So the question tonight, whether we're going to move surplus from solid waste, which is a utility, which is a money-making business,
yes,
that we charge our residents to storm drain, correct? So a transfer of money will be what the public hearing's about.
Yes, it will be exactly about that. Just simply transferring, moving budget from one to another and allowing, moving money from one to another and then allocating the budget to the stormwater fund in order to facilitate those projects.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Ryan. We'll now open the public hearing portion of this item. David McLean.
Mayor and councilmen, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I wanted to express my support for this transfer of $4 million from the Solid Waste Fund to the Stormwater Fund. I am a civil engineer by trade, so stormwater is kind of near to my heart, and I think this would be a good thing for the city to do. I know there's several issues in the city with this Constitution Boulevard area. There's also a concern that I'd like to speak to in the Dorley Acres neighborhood on Bingham View Drive, which every couple years floods the whole road. It's been known to backflow and lift storm drain lids, and that creates a safety item as well as flooding of some basements. And I know there's plans with some of the city engineers looking at solutions for that, and I would just like to have the city council at least consider that project as well as the other projects that that the city is prioritizing. My address, I guess I forgot to say, is 8759 Dorley Drive. Okay, thanks for the opportunity to speak in support of this measure. I guess I should say I'm also a payer of the trash, and I support moving that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we move on to the other items, we do have a storm drain master plan being done by Hanson Allen Luce to look at all areas of the city. Currently, we have a contract with them, so the results of that study will be here within the next couple months. So, June Christiansen.
Thanks for the opportunity that you've given us to speak on this issue. The little notice you just sent out really were a bright green flag to catch our attention. I'm here to speak in support of the proposal to improve drainage and hope that it'll be done in a rational way that keeps the water causing the problems of flooding here in West Jordan. Being well owners, Lynn and I are stakeholders in the sub-aquifers of the west side, and so we sit in on meetings that affect the water issues. Back in the 80s, there was major polluting of two of the major aquifers here on the west side because of the runoff down through the canyons of Kennecott. It pulled all those tailings and the pollution from that down into the subwaters. In answer to this, there was litigation. Money was set aside for 40 years, and to clean up this, a plan was put in place. In this plan, they dammed up the canyon so there's no more runoff that comes down from the Opers through the Kennecott area. And then they put wells in place that were placed between the subaquifers and West Jordan, or Jordan River, and then some up closer to the mine. These wells draw off about 1,000 gallons a minute, run back through a reverse osmosis process, and then those waters are sent through the municipalities to be used by the people. So that draw was at that time, and it's probably more so since with the development out here, the draw off those subaquifers is about 24 inches a year. Utah's natural precipitation is maybe about 13, at high 15 inches per year, with most of it being snow runoff. You look at the west side with the hard-packed clays, and so all of that water, when it comes down from precipitation, is more inclined to run off than it is to soak into those subaquifers. We are not recharging the subaquifers. We're losing water from the west side in a major way. And as the developments occurred, the natural drainage system of the washes and the swales that are in place by nature have been culverted, piped under, flattened out, and so we have this runoff that's just going at a fast pace from the top of the Oakers clear down to the Jordan River. And that's really the truth of the whole matter. We're all affected by that with this flooding. And so as we look at taking care of the flooding, we somehow need to rebuild this system so it imitates the natural system and maintains that runoff water here so it can be precipitated back down into our own aquifers of water. If we don't, we'll be paying a lot more for water from other sources elsewhere, and if we balance that against the solid waste costs, I know we have to take care of both, and as a person who contributes in that and pays the bill for that too, I'm inclined to say, let's look at water first, because seriously, it is the most costly resource, and it is a very precious resource. We don't want to give ours away to someone else and then worry about our solid waste in the process. I think we need to trade off, think about that seriously, and make some changes here. So I applaud Mayor Rolfe and those of you who are putting the plan together. Thank you so much, and I hope that we as the citizens of West Jordan can get in and support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ralph Mendel?
Well, I'd like to thank everyone here for the opportunity to say a few words, Mayor, regarding the, allocating the money. Yes, we are really in favor of that. We have been a sad recipient of being flooded in West Jordan. We've lived in West Jordan in Dorley Park on Bingham View Drive since 1996. The year after we moved in 1997, our brand new home was built. It was flooded and had 7 feet of mud and water and sewage in the basement. It ruined my entire home. And because of the drainage system was not, just like Brother McLean has stated regarding the city knew about the problem back in '97. They were investigating that then. The storm drains were blowing up, and the city officials, had the news, channel 2, 4, 5, 13 was at my house, having pictures of the city officials parking their cars on the drains, holding them down. And I've had sandbags around my home since 1997, around the windows, because every time it rains, we worry about water flooding our basement again. If it rains hard for 20 minutes, I have water in the middle of my yard. They were doing investigations then, and they found out what the problems were, but they were saying it was too expensive to fix the retention pond, connect the drains to the retention ponds, which still sit idle there. Every time it rains, all the water, which should go in the retention pond on Dorley Park, goes in my basement. We were promised a lot of things. Never had any help from the city in the second flood either. Back in 2007, we had 4 feet of water in my basement. All the windows were blown out. My wall was, the fire department knocked down the 5 holes through my cinder block wall, trying to let water out. And you know, the drains, once again, it's been a problem. Every time we go away and it gets cloudy, I call my neighbors to see what's going on. It's like we're living in fear, and it's just like, you know, we've lost tens of thousands and thousands of dollars of money on repairs, and our home is still not fixed right. Our driveway is sunk because of the water washes through there, and you know, it's just you know, you hate to live in fear that way, and especially when they did the investigation years ago and they told us it was going to cost so much money. I'll wrap it up real quick. To repair that, but the city didn't want to get involved with that because it was too expensive to dig up people's subdivisions and connect all the drains off 4800. That goes right down to Bingham View Drive to the retention ponds, which sit empty every time it rains. So I'm hoping that there's something that can be done. You know, you struggle every day to keep your home and to make it nice, and just to have a, you know, not having to worry about unnecessary things that can be resolved, you know, from storm drains that, you know, should be able to handle regular water. But, and I appreciate your time, and hopefully we can look into this and maybe something can come of this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Reynolds?
Thank you, Mayor. I come before you. My name is Scott Reynolds. I live on 8495 Bingham View Drive, just a couple homes down from the Mendel family. So I come before you today also to express my support in transferring these funds to the storm fund. We've seen considerable problems with the storm drainage system. Every time there's a significant amount of rainfall, we worry about the Mendel's home as well as other neighbors' homes in our neighborhood flooding. My home is actually at the low point on the street, and there have been times where there's enough water in the street that it covers the entire wheel of the cars that are parked in the street. So you can imagine the amount of water that collects in the street. We've got video of where we've seen cars driving through it at the times, and you can see the headlights underneath the water. So with the amount of rainfall that we can get at times, the storm drainage system just cannot handle that amount of water. It all collects through all the different drains throughout the neighborhood and comes to that central point where it has to go through the pipes under our property. Originally, there was only a 12-inch line that went through our property on the easement, and that line was increased to a 24-inch, but there was and then another 24-inch line added parallel to that. Those help some, but not enough, and we still see a lot of instances where that water will still plane up and it can't evacuate fast enough. David mentioned that the manhole covers for the storm drains will sometimes pop up when there's enough water build up in the pipes, that's so much that it just can't take it. So then you're left with an open manhole. Someone could drive through that, fall into it. Someone could be walking through the street and fall into that hole. So safety issues there as well. And I know that our neighborhood is not an isolated issue. We've got issues throughout the city with this storm drains. And this would go a long way in helping everyone as a community to make our city better. So I urge you to, in this resolution, to vote for it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brenda Thomas?
Melanie, I'm going to talk for many people, so I'd like 5 minutes, please. My name is Brenda Thomas, as you know, at 6876 South, 3235 West. You know my story, so today I'm going to be very bold in how I feel and how I look at you as a council. Mayor, I would like to ask for all those who sit behind me who support the transferring of this money to please stand with me. Mayor and Council, as residents and neighbors of West Jordan City who have voted each of you into the council seat, we ask that in our behalf, you vote to transfer $4 million into the storm drain fund for the purpose of putting a new storm drain in, that homes will not be flooded again. Part of the responsibility of a council member is to take care for the health and safety of the residents. With the growth of West Jordan and the surrounding cities, our storm drains are not efficient, but a hazard to the well-being of our residents. We ask that as a council, you will unite and work together to solve a 30-year flooding problem. As a city council, you hide behind government immunity. As a resident, I take the loss over and over again. I want to see that this council will stand together for its people and vote to transfer this money and put this project at the top of their list. Then next spring, we as residents might be proud and say, we voted right in putting you on our council. We want to say that our city council holds integrity. They care for our well-being. You can prove this to us by adding your vote to ours. I thank you, council. I have worked with many of you. I have been grateful for the opportunity. I have learned many things. I am grateful for the time you've given to me and my family and for my neighborhood. I'm grateful for the suggestions. I still have faith in you. That is why I am still here. Otherwise, I would go away and take care of myself, finding I cannot. This is one thing I cannot take care of. I have to rely on you and the resources you are capable of bringing to the table to take care of me. That's why I pay my taxes. That's why I vote. I like how Jeff Haga has taught me that this is a utility. I will always be paying my bills. Otherwise, it'll be turned off. It is a money-making thing. I worry I don't want to take from someone else to have someone else hurt. This is our money. This is how we want it used. And please add to my vote that we can take care of this problem and be happy that we are safe, we are not in fear, and that families that here are West Jordan are strong. The rest is fluff. We need to be strong and fearless and support you, council, as you support us. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Roger Johnson.
Just one more to support this passing of this bill. I encourage you to do this, to support improving the drainage systems for all of these neighborhoods that are being flooded on a consistent basis. I've counted more heavy storms this year that have hit us in our area at Bingham View Drive than any year, and they lasted, we experienced them longer into the year, late September, even early October in the last 3 weeks, than we ever have. But 3 weeks ago, there was a storm that wasn't as heavy. Part of the reason that none of them flooded any homes in our neighborhood this year was because they didn't last long enough. They didn't last as long as some that happened in Harriman and elsewhere at the same time. But about 3 weeks ago, we had one that wasn't as heavy, but it lasted longer. And I watched the drains begin to back up and the street begin to fill. And if it hadn't stopped, it was only about a half hour, but if it hadn't stopped, the Mendel's home would have been flooded as it has been before, and several others possibly would have been. And so please support this. Let's see if we can make this happen for all of the neighborhoods who have major problems with their drainage. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this public hearing item, please step forward. Please state your name and address, please, for the record.
Thank you for hearing me. My name is Cindy Peterson, and my address is 5986 West 70th South in West Jordan. And I'd like to talk about like 3 weeks ago also when we had a rainstorm. Usually when it does rain, when we have a substantial storm, it'll kind of wash out our road a little bit on the hill on 70th South, and some of the dirt will come in the road and kind of wash it out a little bit. But that's not really why we're here tonight. We're here to talk about the storm drains. And I know there is a retaining pond along Power Line Alley, which is about 5820 West. And that had quite a bit of water in it after the storm. But my idea was I urge you to maybe check into trying to get the water further up from West Jordan, where I'm at. Maybe try to retain it up there before it comes all the way down to these people's places. Because it looks like it runs pretty clear through my area. It looks like, I've never seen it. I mean, it's on a hill, so it's like we might be able to help somehow catch it up, further up the stream. Thank you for hearing me, and I urge you if you could check into that. There's a lot of minds here tonight. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Please come forward.
My name is Lynn Raspin. I reside at 6417 West, 7800 South. And as you know, there's new subdivisions going in on both sides of us, which at this point, thanks to the city council and to the engineering department, they have made a fishbowl out of our property. They have increased one side of it 6 to 10 foot in elevation. The mayor has been out and seen it. Justin Stoker's been out and seen it. We have sent pictures of the water running down our road in a river from these subdivisions. I think that this proposal to transfer funds is awesome, but if we don't stop our developers from putting in drainage like this, we won't have another $4,000 to transfer. What's going to happen to the rest of the people that are going to build now? You're putting our neighbors against us because their drainage comes onto our property. There is no drainage system available to us, and there is nothing but a wall that when you watch the cars drive across the top of the wall from our bathroom window. And that's wrong, and that water is wrong. And we need to create a development that takes care of these drainage problems when they're built, not 40 years after the fact when we have spare money. And I suggest that we look forward to causing good, fresh drainage now and not 40 years down the road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion. Oh, I'm sorry. Please come forward. I missed you.
I'm kind of little, so it's easy to overlook me back there. But I thank you for your time, and I'm thankful for the support of the folks in the valley there where we do have this need. My name is Dave Reese, and reside at 6813 South, 3235 West. And I don't have a lot. I just wanted to make a brief observation. At this point, you really have an opportunity to set a precedent and also a reputation. Right now, West Jordan has the means to accomplish this. If you need to supplement it with a issue of, I'm trying to think of the word for the borrowing money, along with the oversupply in the means that are available. Bond issue is what I was trying to think of. You need to supplement it with a bond issue. That would be a means that would work both ways also. But you have the opportunity now, and the means to do it now. If you don't do it now, when will you? When will this get done? How many more years, how much more suffering are we going to have to go through before it is done? That's my challenge to you, to answer that question. And that's all I'd like to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else that I missed? Yes, please come forward. I think we'll have it tonight, but we'll see in just a moment. Anyone else? Okay, now I will close the public hearing portion and move to the council for discussion and or motions. Councilmember Southworth.
Thank you, Mayor. We had some good comments here tonight, but there's one comment that really stood out. It was made, looks like maybe she's left. June Christiansen got up and talked about our water aquifers and what we're doing with that. And you know, that's something that's been there, you know, and considered, but nobody's ever put it so eloquently and laid that out. So I want to comment or commend her on that and what she did, and it really got me thinking about what we're doing. And we, you know, the west side of the city, to your comments there, what are we doing? We just built a very large retention basin out off 56 and 7800 South, really large one. And I'd like to see us do more of that. That's really, we hear about the cost of water and this massive increase that's coming at us because we're going to go after water out of the Bear Lake, and if our aquifers are drying up, that's a big thing. But let's put that aside for a second. This it has been no secret that I'm really not a fan of this transfer, and it is not. I don't want anybody for a second to think that, well, he just wants to see our houses flood. He doesn't care. That's absolutely not true. I just fundamentally disagree with government charging its citizens when that is something that the core of government that has to be respected and kept in check at all means. That is the power of government right there, to take money from citizens. And when a government says, I'm going to take money for a purpose, I fundamentally will fight to always make sure that money stays for that purpose, and if it doesn't, it should be given back to the people. And that's where I'm coming from. Now, I would rather have that money given back, and that we increase, and we had a discussion about we're going to need a $5 million bond just to do this. We don't collect enough money in our water, stormwater fees. We just do not, flat out. Earlier I believe it was this year, this council turned down an increase in the stormwater fund. We said, no, we don't need to increase it. We don't need that money. Maybe that was out of a lack of understanding. I don't know. I know it was based on, and this is something for the citizens to consider. There were campaign promises made that said we will not raise taxes, we will not increase fees. I don't want to raise any tax or any fee. But sometimes there are legitimate needs, and this is one of them. And we need to consider that. We could make this transfer, and there's no wrong or right. If you do it, great. If you don't, there's different ways to attack this. But we have to remember that this is not enough to fix the problem. We're going to have the backbone to be honest with ourselves and say we have a problem with our stormwater. And the money, it just is not there to take care of the problem. We can band-aid it with this. That's what it is. But we've got to have the backbone to step up and say, let's address the problem. And that is a long-term solution through the fees. I don't want to do that. But that's what needs to be done. Thank you.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. For those who are in attendance tonight, there's a few faces that are very, very familiar that have been here to quite a few council meetings and have heard quite a bit of conversation we've had over the last few months. We've had conversations all across the board as to what we should do, where we should go, how we should fix this. And I just really want to applaud you for being here tonight as this kind of comes to a head and we hopefully get to the point where we can make a decision. Councilmember Southworth brought up some very, very good concerns. And in part, I agree, and in part, I disagree. We talk about the ability for the government to reach into somebody's pocket and pull money out of their pocket by, not necessarily by force, but there's definitely some coercion there. It's a very delicate subject, and I agree in principle with the idea that what we pull money out for should remain with that purpose. However, when we found that a mistake has been made, we talked about money was being saved with the intent to build a transfer station, and it's no longer necessary. What do we do with that? I would agree that the best thing to do would be to give that back to the residents if there was a way to do that. The reality is we don't. We've collected that money over decades. Some of those who have been paying into the fund have moved out. Others have moved in. If we tried to do a reduction in the solid waste fee, that money would be going to folks who didn't necessarily pay the overage into it, and we'd still be stuck raising the fees for stormwater to cover the problem. When you mentioned that there was an unwillingness to raise the stormwater fee when we looked at rates earlier this year, I have to admit I was one of them. I was loudly opposed to it because my concern is if we already have cash on hand that could be used, let's use that first before we go back to residents asking for more money. If we transfer these funds, at that point, yes, I think it would be appropriate to reevaluate our rate structure. As Ryan mentioned, if we were to bond for a portion of the project, which we'll have to do, we don't have enough in the rate structure to repay those bonds. And I think it would be completely appropriate to revisit the fee structure even before waiting till the first of the year when we normally would do that. The other thing that really stuck out to me, a couple thoughts shared by some folks. First of all, Ms. Thomas, who said, this is our money, this is how we want it used. It's very rare that we get people here at a public hearing in support of what's being proposed. Usually, pitchforks and torches have been prepared well in advance to oppose whatever motion's on the table. So it's resounding from the community that, at least in my opinion, that they recognize the issue of having money collected for one thing and the concern about transferring it to something else, but it is their money and they are okay with that. I've not met with anybody around the Dorley Park area, but I've met with many of the residents around Constitution Park, and it's an everyday concern. I live down the street, about 70th and Redwood, and I've had flooding numerous times. I can very much relate with Mr. Mendel, who said, you're making phone calls to the neighbors every time it gets cloudy and you're living in fear. The first time our home flooded, we had about 2 feet of water that made it in. My wife and I were at the state fair. It was the all-you-can-eat ice cream day. And one of our neighbors called and said, you probably want to get here right away. And ever since then, we've lived under that same dark shadow. I've spent a lot of time with the stormwater folks. I have confidence in their ability. I'm anticipating very much the results of the study by Hanson Allen Lewis about the stormwater master plan. I think that would show us that we have more issues than we think we do. But in the end, to kind of circle my comments back on point, it's the money paid in by the residents. I don't see a way that we could legitimately give it back to the same people who paid in. I don't think that's possible, and we don't have the resources. And in the end, that would be more of a shell game because we need to fix the problem that's existed for 30 years and quite a few councils before us. So I would support very wholeheartedly the transfer of funds. And the other thing I would suggest is when it comes to amount, with all due respect to the recommendation of the staff that we try and stay below the $4 million mark. It was just a few months ago that we passed a resolution authorizing a $5 million, I think it was a $5 million line of credit that we have in case of emergency. And we do have that in place. I would be supportive of the full proposed amount being transferred over to tackle some of these other projects. I could still support 3.5, but my preference would be we transfer the full 4 and start moving on some of these projects immediately. The last thing I'll bring up is try and bring to your memory the presentation I put together for our last council meeting showing the photos of the neighborhoods. Many of the folks here over by Constitution Park live with their garages blocked off by sandbags, some inside the garage, some out front, and you drive through the neighborhood and you feel like you're in a war zone. It doesn't feel like you're in the home of the good neighbor. We have the means, we have the ability to fix the issue, and we're, I think, remiss at a minimum and irresponsible if we don't take the resources that have already been collected and use them to fix the problems that are affecting most close to these people's lives. Thank you.
Councilmember Haga?
Thanks, Mayor. Could I ask that we put on the packet page number 3? It shows the line item cash on hand. Do we not have the packet? Well, I'll just go ahead and move forward.
Here it is, right?
Oh, okay. Go down, if you would, to the cash on hand. Keep going, right there. Just so everyone knows where this money has come from. If you go from 2006, we had over $500,000. Then it went up I'm just going to round numbers at 1.2, and so on, so on, so on, so on, until I was on council 3 or 4 months, and I'm in the mayor's office, and he says, we have $4.6 million in solid waste sitting in the bank. Yeah. City manager came in, and some of the financial guys, and we have that much money sitting in the bank. And, you know, it's a reality. I am one of the taxpayers that have paid into this for that many years. And the fiduciaries, which we are, the council, I would hope somebody would have caught this before now, but now that we see this money and we know we have problems in our city with our storm drains, it's not about raising taxes tonight. It's about moving this money and solving a problem very, very quickly with educated, factual evidence of what we need to do to solve the flooding problems. We need to know the facts. But the first step is funding, and I would like to see if you look from after we move, I hope this is a unanimous vote, after we move this $4 million, that we analyze what's left, which is almost $620,000 sitting in the bank. Now remember, we're collecting money every month still, so this is still paying the bills. But we reanalyze this and see, as fiduciary, if we're overcharging, first of all, our residents on solid waste. As far as the storm drain, again, I'm a proponent. I would like to see more moved over, but it was advertised at $4 million and the recommendation from the mayor. So I'm a proponent of moving the $4 million, but I want you to know that there's different ways of getting money for storm drains. I've had 3 homes in West Jordan. I paid basically new home 3 impact fees called storm drain impact fees. Where I live, I believe in my mind that I paid for all my water that comes off my house to flow into a safe area. And so, you know, again, as fiduciaries, it's our responsibility. We're going to look at that. Our new residents, you're going to have to pay for your water that comes down the grade. And we'll look at that. As far as what we need to do now is move this money. I can tell you right now in the general fund, We have the money where we don't even have to bond, but where money is cheap, so to speak, right now, we feel we can actually accomplish the storm drain issues with a bond. And as far as a future fee, that'll be another day. Let's solve the water issues. But let's wait. Please give us the time for our engineering department to come back with this study that is from, I mean, we commissioned this study at probably $200,000. It's going to analyze our whole city so we can say what's going on. We already know some issues, and we can get those done in the spring, but there's other deeper issues we need to find out. So be patient with us. I'm a proponent of moving $4 million. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilmember Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have lived in this city for 48 years. So we didn't have storm drains when I moved here. We didn't have trash pickup when I moved here. You burned your garbage. I couldn't tell you when I started paying for storm drain. I couldn't tell you when I started paying for garbage or solid waste. You get your bill, you pay it. I was raising children, just paid your bill. I do agree that it is the taxpayers' money, as Councilman Southworth said, but I've never been flooded. I don't have a right to that money because I have never had that experience. I take that back. I've got a neighbor that doesn't know how to irrigate, so I have had that flooding. That is not a storm drain problem. And so I am very much in favor of giving this money, transferring this money to alleviate the problems that you are suffering, because I have not suffered them even though I have paid into the storm drain fund and the solid waste fund since it began. And I will continue to pay in it as long as I live in this city. So I am in favor of transferring that money.
Councilmember Stoker.
Thank you, Mayor. My background is I'm a civil engineer, like Mr. McLean out there. And my background is in urban hydrology and flood control. This whole process has been extremely frustrating to me. When I first joined the council a couple of years ago, the stormwater rate was about $2.80, if I remember right. It was enough money to pay for a part-time person to drive around in a pickup truck to try to clean out our storm drains. The first year that I was on the council, we knew that the need was there, but we only raised the rate to $3.65, enough to hire one additional person and a little bit of additional equipment to take care of the issue, to try to do the bare minimum to try to take care of our storm drain system. We're looking at 2 people and a truck across our entire city, trying to keep the system clean and trying to keep new projects ahead of the floods. We again raised the rates to $4.02 last year with the understanding that we are going to do this progressive increase until we are taking care of our problem. This year we stopped doing that. We stopped trying to get where we need to go to take care of our flooding problem. And we have a flooding problem. We are insistent on staying at the bare minimum or below the bare minimum to take care of our storm drain needs. We need to make sure that we are adequately funding the enterprise fund necessary for this to operate. It's been mentioned about impact fees also take care of that, but impact fees only take care of new areas and new development. It does not pay for upsizing, and it does not pay for maintenance. You know, there's been talk about we can use money from the general fund. Well, that's not what that general fund money is used for. We have an enterprise fund. It is its own business to take care of storm drain, and we are not putting enough money into to even scratch the surface of what we need to do. We'll probably talk about this later, whether it's item 8A or another day, but there has been no money in that fund to take care of new projects for years. It is time that we stop with the little Band-Aid and we actually make this work. We need to make sure that our storm drain enterprise fund is properly funded so that next year we can take care of those needs. And the year after that, we can take care of those needs. And if we do bond for storm drain improvements, we have money to be able to pay off that bond. We can't just rely upon, the fortuitous circumstances we had here where we had some money set aside for a transfer station we don't need. And luckily we can make that transfer, but we have over $10 million in storm drain needs in our city. $4 million is barely going to scratch the surface. What we need to do is adequately fund our storm drain enterprise, make sure that we are taking care of the needs from year to year, we are cleaning our storm drains, we are taking care of the repairs that we need, we are putting in new storm drains where they're needed, we are upsizing them where they're needed, and so we are not having this discussion year after year after year. I support the move of the money in this circumstance, but we need to make sure that this is not just going to be a Band-Aid that's going to fall off next year. We need to make sure that we are going to fix this problem, whether it's through restructuring of the fee itself. We don't necessarily have to raise the fee, we can restructure it so that it makes more sense. Right now, Walmart is pretty much paying the same as every resident, based upon a quarter-acre lot. If Walmart has a full acre, they're paying basically $16 a month for their storm drain fee. I can't think of any other city that does that. There's ways that we can fix this without necessarily raising fees, but we've got to fix the problem so that we are not left struggling with this problem next year. So, I support the move of the money. I think it needs to happen. I support the necessary bond, but I also support the need to adequately fund our enterprise fund so we can pay for the bond and we can pay for these problems next year.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a lot of thoughts all over my paper here. I'll see if this can come out in a semi-educated way. So I apologize if I sound a little all over there, because the notes are all over. I want to first start off with what Councilmember Southworth said, and I agree. And that was initially my argument, was the fact that there was no transparency in taking money, and as I said then, stealing money from a fund that the public has paid and putting it in another fund. There is nothing that is less transparent than that. That is exactly what the public dislikes. They pay for something and then you go and you spend it on something else. It happened a few years ago. The rodeo, there was an issue on the ballot and they said, should we move the arena? And overwhelmingly, the public said no. Next thing you know, the council says, well, we'll move it anyway. And so anyway, I feel for you because that was my argument initially. That being said, let's move to the next stage. I think Councilmember McConaughey has portrayed some really good insight, and that is the fact that, as has been stated, a mistake was made. We collected money. And I was not aware when I made that argument initially that there was a very public way in which we could approach it, let the public know and come speak to us and how we could transfer that money. And I was not under the understanding that we could do that. Specifically tonight, I heard from two individuals who really made that case for me, and that was June Christiansen and Dave, was it Dave Reese? No, I'm sorry, it was Lynn Risban, maybe it was, there was Cindy, Peterson. And why did those people come up and make that argument for me? It's because they did not experience this big flood, to which brought on all the attention for what we're discussing today. Yet they came out, they saw the flyer, and they came to speak, and that, to me, addresses the transparency issue, and it moves me on to this next stage. My argument is this, and it's more in the lines of what we just heard from Councilman Stoker. You've all heard it from me every time. I have been asking to raise the storm drain fee every year, this year included, which was denied by this council. I recognize there's a problem. I've known there's a problem. And the problem that we have is the lack of capital expenditures. We don't have a way to replace any of our existing equipment. We don't have a way to upsize it. We don't have the money to do it. And I've been asking for a fee increase and asking for a fee and pleading for a fee increase, and unfortunately this council hasn't been willing to do that. I do not know why. There's an apparent problem. I mean, you have a whole room full of people here saying we have a flooding problem. And the only way to fund that historically has been through the storm drain fee. It's the logical way. Councilman Stoker said it best. We're doing it with 2 people on a truck. Now, granted, we funded it a little bit better, but we're just getting by. So where are we tonight? My issue for me tonight, I do not want to just put a great big Band-Aid on it and move forward. To me, it's a 3-part process. I think this transfer of money is a Band-Aid, but I do think it will help. It's part of the bigger problem. The bigger problem for me is perpetual funding. Because if I fix the problem today, the problem is tomorrow a new pipe might need to be upsized. We don't have funding for that. That is the perpetual problem, and we need to fix that. And I think we can start to make the direction or headed in that direction tonight. The first step is moving this money. The second step, the bond. But we can't take the bond from other funds and such and raid other parts of our finances. We need to do it, I think, just through fees. I really like Councilman Stoker's idea. I don't know why we're not charging those who have all the pavement. Because we're charging the same fee to someone who has nothing but pavement to someone who has a bunch of lawn where it soaks in the water. That's ludicrous to me. We need to really address that. But we also have to be careful. We can't just go out there and just say, well, they're the complete cause of the problem, because then people won't do business in West Jordan because it's too expensive. So we have to be very careful with that. But then there's that third aspect, and I'm pleading again. The fees need to be increased. I'm very sorry. I'm telling the public right now we have to raise. It's basically a tax so that we can carry your water. But I'm sorry, it needs to be done. And although we can't take action tonight to raise the fees, I'm telling you that for me in my mind is where we need to go. Tonight, I would support this measure that we need to move the money. But like I said, move the money. We need to do the bond, and we can supplement that with fees or a restructuring, whatever we need to do. But then additionally, we need fees to make sure we fund this accurately. We can't just do it overnight. It's a long-term problem, but we need to agree that over time we need to increase those fees. I do not know how we went for another year without increasing it. I plead with you. I plead with the public. Please support us so that we can move in that direction. And anyway, that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple things that I'd like to add, and then I would look for a motion. I sat in the seat that Councilmember McConaughey sits in now for 8 years and 3 different city managers, and I stated then, and I'm stating again tonight, it's on the record, impact fees needed to be reviewed and reassessed, and I disagree with my colleagues. When there's an impact to the existing system upstream from new construction, impact fees can be used to rebuild, relay, and upsize the storm drain to accommodate the new growth. I believe that this council needs to immediately look at a new study of impact fees on the storm drain system, the water system, and the sewer system, so that the new growth pays their way, not the existing citizens. The new growth pays for their cost to the existing system. I also wanted to point out one thing that I've been talking to Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District that one of our citizens mentioned. We need to look at more retention ponds so that the water is recharging the aquifers in the soil. We'll have to look at some filtration. They have a wonderful thing down at Jordan Valley that you're a member of the board. I believe that we need to look at more of that so that we're not trying to flow all the water from the Ochre Mountains all the way to the Jordan River. That will come with, I believe, the study that's already in progress right now. But tonight, we're only talking about transferring money to take care of a major problem on this particular item. We'll talk about bonding in a minute, but I believe that absolutely without question, and I hope someone will make a motion immediately, $4 million needs to be transferred from what has been overcharged in the solid waste fund into the storm drain fund. Thank you. Councilmember Stoker.
I move to approve resolution number 14-200, transferring $4 million fund balance in cash, as well as amending the budgets for the affected funds for fiscal year 14-15.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Stoker and a second by Councilmember Nichols. Any discussion? Yes, Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I very much support the motion. I would wonder if you'd be open to a friendly amendment to include direction to staff to bring back proposals to reevaluate the current stormwater fee before year-end, calendar year-end.
I approve that amendment.
I accept it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion to the motion?
Yes.
Councilmember Southwood.
Thank you. I just want to state up front, I'm still opposed to this move. It's not always fun to stand by yourself, but sometimes you have to do that based on what you think is right. But I will consider, and I'm pretty close because of what you just said, Councilman McConaughey, that we do. And this needs to be clear, that we've got to take care of this long term. A superficial fix is not going to work, and that's what we're doing right now, but we need to address this long term, so thank you.
Okay, just before we vote, I'd like to make a statement that I will support the motion just because I believe that $4 million needs to be moved immediately to take care of a problem that exists. I would like to oppose the motion because we already have, staff has already done the review of what they propose we need as a fee. I don't think that needs to be added, but just for the sake of time, I will support the motion based on the $4 million. Let's vote.
Councilmember Haga?
Yes.
Councilmember Stoker?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Southworth?
No.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe?
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Vote passes 6-1 in favor.
Yes, Councilmember McConaughey first.
Thank you, Mayor. One quick comment I want to make. Despite being on opposite sides of the page with Councilmember Southworth, I want to say thank you very much for your openness and transparency into your thought process well before this came out so we could have a good conversation. Very much appreciate that. And second, Mayor, I propose a 5-minute move that we have a 5-minute recess.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5 minutes only, please. Okay, moving on to item 7B. Receive public input and consider for approval ordinance 14-31, amending the 2009 West Jordan Municipal Code, making miscellaneous amendments and adding language relating to the new cap and grade requirements for certain types of multifamily residential developments. Citywide applicability, City of West Jordan. Tom Burdett.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I think it was some time ago when we first started to discuss in a strategic plan changing some of the development code regulations relating to multifamily, single-family ratios. And in concert with that discussion was a discussion for upgrading some of the development standards in the city. And I think City Council gave us some very good direction. We also have in our code other sections in growth management. One of them is adequate public facilities, which assures that we have water and sewer and fire protection and those kind of things for new development. The general plan also has an issue, has a policy that talks about multifamily to single family ratio. In addition, we've had workshops with the Planning Commission jointly with the City Council to discuss how we would approach the matter. As you know, multifamily is a term that incorporates many housing types, and we should be careful about how we enact regulations that affect general housing types. If stereotyped into one, there could be some unintended consequences that the council really doesn't want to happen. But assuming that that there is to be a desired management system put in place that really is to focus on market rate apartments, then I think we've put together an ordinance that addresses that concern. Certainly, programs like the Good Landlord program that the city has adopted have had an impact, I think, to the positive for rental units in our community. And we've based this ordinance on the foundation of this ratio in the general plan. If that is not the desired ratio, certainly City Council can direct staff to bring forward a change to that policy in the general plan. So with what we have to present tonight is a cap and grade. The cap is driven by that policy in the general plan, and the grade is established by a competition and awards point system. It focuses in on growth management items that are typically used in grading placement of a project and comparing it with other competing development proposals. It stopped a little short of going into extensive architectural and urban design standards, which we anticipate coming back with the next phase. And the reason we didn't overly program architectural standards is we felt from the City Council that that's kind of a citywide concern that would affect many forms of housing, not just multifamily, and that we should look at that in a more holistic way. So I'd like to note that if there are some changes, we'll bring those back as soon as possible, and open up the floor to Ray McCandless, who will give us an overview of the cap and grade ordinance. And I want to thank Ray for his work on this. This is a good piece of legislation, and Robert Thorpe in the Attorney's Office for their work on this. So I'll turn the time over to Ray.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The general plan, I know that somebody participated in that process, acknowledges that just over time that ratio of multifamily to single family housing has just shifted over time. And it's I think, for example, back in 2000, that ratio was around 86 to 14%. Today it's right around 78 to 22%. So we've had quite a shift over the years in that ratio. I don't have a lot of slides, but just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. What Tom was talking about, this is just one of the goals in the plan. As you might recall, we did go through this percentage actually a couple of times with the council. The council landed on the percentage of 83-17. And this goal in the general plan is to manage multifamily housing to preserve the low-density nature of West Jordan by maintaining a single-family to multifamily residential housing ratio of 83 to 17. Just to give you an idea of where we're at now, we have in 2014, this is in April, we calculated approximately 25,276 single-family dwellings, which is right in line with the number of garbage cans that we have that I heard tonight. So, multifamily is 7,331 for a total of 32,607 units. So again, that puts our ratio at 77.5 to 22.5. So
Ray, can I ask you one question before you go on?
Sure.
The slide. Is that what is actually built and garbage cans are at now, or is that what is approved to be built as of today?
This is what is existing as of today. It's not the number of approved, the approved units are the ones that are waiting to go through that process. These are the ones that actually exist.
Do you know the number of apartments that have been approved, or roughly the number of apartments that have been approved on top that could be built tomorrow with just buying a building permit?
I do, and then I've got
Okay,
another slide
sorry.
that will show
I just
that.
wanted to make sure I understood where.
Okay. In the code, we, as Tom mentioned, well, the general plan does also, it encourages a variety of housing. And part of that is that it encourages certain types of housing. And what we've done in the code is exempted a number of things. First would be multifamily housing in a transit station overlay district, senior housing for age 55 and older, owner-occupied townhomes with an attached garage, twin homes with an attached garage, multifamily for disabled persons, and then low and moderate income housing owned by a nonprofit or local housing authority. Let me just see if I can find that. Just in kind of summarizing where we are headed with the cap and grades, it's fairly straightforward. Basically what it does is it puts kind of a hold on certain types of multifamily while the single family is built and catches up to that percentage. What happens is at the beginning of each year we calculate, or the staff will calculate, the number of multifamily dwellings that are available for construction for that year based on that 83-17 ratio. If there are units available, then the staff will announce how many there are on January the 15th. Developers can then submit their development proposals. And then following that, each proposal will be evaluated based on that point system that we have in the code. And then the winner will be able to use all or part of those number of units that are available. If they don't use the total number, then the number of units will be available to the next highest winner, if you will. This is just a slide that we put together some time ago, but it just kind of generally shows you what single family housing number of homes that we've built since 2000. As you can see, those lines will cross, and it's all market driven. As you can see, in 2000 in 2003 there was a huge spike. We had 1,200 dwelling units in that year. Multifamilies dropped off, and then the housing market went through its decline, and then you can see multifamily went back up. But for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been those have kind of tapered off. I think right now, averaged over the last 5 years or so, we've been averaging about 170, 180 single-family dwelling units in a year. This is the slide that I was talking about. So that was the numbers that you saw showed the existing number of dwelling units, but this shows on the top graphic shows the number of units, the total number of units that are either where we've accepted an application for, or they've been vested by density. As you can see, the big one here is the Jordan Valley TOD. We're not sure when that'll be completed, but we've got some other ones as well, like the Addenbrooke at Highlands, the View at the Highlands, 535. So the total number of vested units that right now is about 2,600. That'll obviously change that ratio. We've got some other ones that have come in either through like a pre-application meeting or we've talked to that account for another potentially 1,500 units. So there are a lot of units that are either in the process or online that'll change that ratio even further. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. even if we do hold the number of units where they are today, we think it's just going to be a long time before the standard multifamily dwellings are going to be able to be built under the cap and grade system. If you'd like, I can go through the ordinance with you, or if you can just open up for questions. I'd be happy to address that.
Has anyone not read through the ordinance? I think we've talked about this at length. Looks like we've got a couple questions. Councilmember Stoker?
Just a quick question for you, Ray. We went over, there were 6 exemptions from the proposed ordinance. My question is, if somebody goes in with one of those exemptions and they go ahead and get built, does it still count against the ratio, or is it not even counted? So I guess what I mean is, if, for instance, the TOD areas, the Gardner Mill and the Jordan Valley TODs get built, which are going to be hundreds, if not thousands of units, if they count against the ratio, it could effectively kill any other multifamily project in the city for years. So, I mean, does it...
It would.
Are they counted, or... Are
they would be counted.
They would be counted?
Councilmember Hagan?
Just what, I really like this ordinance, actually, but as far as once you approve these developers, I'm trying to find this, is it just a planning and zoning approval, or does the council have a look at the awardees or whoever gets the...
That's a good question. What that does is that opens the gate for it to go through the normal review process. So if it requires only planning commission review, that's where it goes. If it requires council review, for example, in the planned development zones, it comes to the council for to set the densities. So it just follows the normal process. That's just the gate.
Councilmember Southworth.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So the concern I have, just one that I just want to throw out, it's not a big deal, but the name of it, the cap and grade, you change one letter and you got cap and trade, which is different. It's close, but it's different, but it holds a real negative connotation out in the public, I think. Well, it probably depends on how many trees you have each day, whether it holds a negative connotation. I'm just wondering, did you have any other ideas you guys banded around of names that would... I don't know if it matters, but I just don't want to go... Something like this could be branded pretty negatively fast.
That's just what we've been calling
based on the name. Yeah, okay. That's the only concern I'm throwing out there right now, so we'll just kind of think about that as we move forward.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, Ray, this chart right here really grabbed my attention. But we all knew about that 1,396 units at the TOD, but as you're looking at the list, do we have a similar list of single-family dwellings that are not counted in the previous slide? Do we have a ballpark? Because I'm just throwing out numbers to come up with percentages right now where we're at.
Let's see. I think if we're doing, I've got it. Let me look at my notes here. We went out for 2 years and on the single family, and at about 170 dwelling units per year. That's what we've been doing for the last 5 years-ish. What that would do is that it would, in the next 2 years, we'd be looking at 452 new single families in the next couple of years, single family dwellings. So that might give you an idea for a 2-year period.
That helps. I'm just looking for ballpark.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions for Ray at this time?
I do have one more, sorry. Excuse me. As I'm looking at these numbers, we're just kind of batting around. I mean, that's roughly 10%. So the vested is roughly 10% of the total housing stock in the city, correct? Didn't we say we have about the single family, excuse me, of the single family. How would single family ever, I mean, I know how it would. There'd have to be an explosion in single family growth, but I'm looking at this, if we go down this road, basically cutting off all single-family growth future. This is it for quite some time.
Single family is allowed to continue.
Excuse me, multifamily. It's too early to be too late.
So it's
Actually, if you go back to the rate though that we were building at back in 06, 07, when it was 600-700 houses a year, it catches up pretty quick, which I think we're poised to do right now, is get back into the single family if with this cap and grade system, so it does get back in line sooner than possibly you might think, but there's still, if you add these units that could be built tomorrow with a building permit, because they're already approved, it's a third of the city is approved for currently.
So have you played this out? Have you gamed this out, graphed it, or anything to kind of?
To know how long.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Maybe it's hard to discuss. This is not a city council meeting discussion. I don't think you can't really get into these details very easily. So maybe we should talk later. Unless you got.
It's going to be years before that happens. Yeah. Okay. But again, it's hard to pin down because you simply don't know what the market's going to, how the market's going to play out. You know, next year we may be doing the 700 or the 700 permits per year. We just don't know.
Okay.
Councilmember Stoker?
I was just doing some quick math. You know, if we're pinning down the ratio to 77.5% to 22.5% to basically absorb the 2,639 units that are vested, we would have to add 11,729 single-family homes before one new multifamily unit can be approved. And we know that multifamilies don't build in 10 units. They build in complexes of 100 or so. We're looking at almost 12,000 single-family homes. That's almost half of what we have existing in the city. I don't think we have the space to even reach another 12,000 single-family homes. I'm worried that if we do this, I mean, our grandchildren may never see a new apartment complex. And unless we look at something like completely exempting and removing out the TOD areas from the calculations, I think we're severely hamstringing future councils from what might be appropriate in 5 to 10 years. I'm really worried about trying to absorb 2,600 units into the single-family market. I mean, we looked at a previous slide where there was only about 180 single-family homes approved last year. It would take 100 years.
Councilmember McConaughey?
You know, on second thought, Mayor, I'll hold my comments until after the public hearing because there are more comments and questions, so never mind for now.
Okay, would be my opinion that before Ray sits down, that we probably should set the rate at what it is today to be fair to the development community, closer to 28% to 72, and start at that ratio rather than 17 to 83, because I agree with Councilmember Stoker, it would take years and years, but I believe the public has spoken clearly that 1/3 of our population being multifamily is enough. So that's just my opinion. Any other questions for Ray? Thanks, Ray. A very good presentation. Appreciate it. We'll now open the public hearing portion of this item 7B. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Please come forward. State your name and address, please.
You don't know me?
Yeah.
Michelle Foote, 1252 Lucky Cove. You know, I don't really know a lot about the cap and grade program. What I do know is that we have a lot of apartments in West Jordan already, And when Councilman Stoker was commenting that we would need, I think he said 11,729 single-family dwellings, that tells me we have too many apartments that are already approved and in the works. To me, if you don't approve the cap and grade, it's just going to get worse. There's no way we're going to meet the expectations set by the general plan unless something changes. Because if the single-family homes are being developed at, I think I heard 170 to 200 per year, versus the apartments have 2,600, and I'm not sure what time frame that covers, whether that's a year or 2 years, or how long it's going to take to get those in place. But the balance is already off, so something has to change. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse before it gets better. So I would think it's a good thing that we couldn't approve any new apartment complexes until those 11,000 single-dwelling families were in their homes, because it's just going to be more and more upset. That's my 2 cents worth. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Dwayne, did you want to speak? Yes, please come forward. Please state your name and address, even though we know you.
Mayor, members of the council, my name is Dwayne Rasmussen. My address is 6740 South 1300 East in Cottonwood Heights. I happen to be a multifamily developer in addition to being a single-family developer, so I understand part of what you're going through. We just finished the construction of 146 lots in Maple Hills, which we're very excited about. In fact, our company is going to build a few of those single-family homes in addition to selling others. I know the issues that you wrestle with, and they're not easily solved. I think Councilman Stoker has raised sort of the crux of the argument that I'd like to have you understand a little bit tonight, and that is I'm all for grade. In fact, I'm for grade expanding where Tom has gone with the architectural controls, not just exterior but interior, so that the amenities are created that create a significant community that bring in people who are long-term members of your community, whether they buy other homes or choose to live in an apartment, as a lot of people are doing right now. So I think the grade is the bigger issue rather than the cap. It's occurred to me since this ordinance came to our attention that if you put the cap on it, you give the existing apartment owners no incentive to put dollars back in because they won't have any additional competition coming. And in my mind, I know that one of the reasons that apartments are a problem in your community are the quality of the apartments that are being rented. And in some cases, the socioeconomic problems that those bring to the community. But when you create a high-quality apartment complex for people who are looking to become new members of your community in jobs that are close, to spend their money in the community that they make in your community rather than go home to high-quality apartments in Sandy or South Jordan or Murray at night and take that income with them, I think you've created a problem that may be part of the unintended consequence that Tom has referred to earlier. I clearly understand that you have a problem to wrestle with. I'm not sure the cap is the way to do it, because if I were an existing apartment owner, I would look at the cap and say, we're probably 10 years until another apartment complex can be built in our community. So let's not fix the garage, let's not paint the walls, let's not put new carpet down, because we're the only thing in town. And so I wonder if maybe you're cutting the pie both ways in that respect. As you know, I have a vested interest. We're working with Westridge Academy on a potential apartment, high-quality apartment complex out there that we've been talking with the staff about. This essentially would kill that for a long time to come. That's not part of your decision tonight, but I want you to know that those kinds of opportunities in the future you won't see. You won't get a chance to grade them because we'll never get beyond the cap. So my hat's off to you for running for this job and dealing with these issues, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this issue? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing portion of this item. Go back to the council for discussion or motion. Councilmember Haga.
Cap and grade. I actually read this 3 times. I think it's great city ordinance. I go back when I've sat in the audience out there, and we thought 11% should have been the cap, and now we're at 22%. My only comment on staying at the 17 is this, and that is, after reading this ordinance, is I think it will force, I shouldn't use the word force, it will require, I think, the developer to have a higher quality product. But I think it also, if you look at the ordinance, the developers are allowed to have townhomes still. Townhomes that are connected, that can be 2 to 3 stories with a basement, as long as they're individually owned. And so, in a sense, that's, in my mind, multifamily. However, you have ownership in that property. I have children that live in one in South Jordan, and it's a great community. They have a great HOA, but they own their property and they take care of it. So I'm a proponent of staying at 17. I think anything higher, I think the growth of West Jordan is the numbers will come faster than what we think. I'm a proponent of staying at 17%. Great ordinance, thanks.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple thoughts. First, I've grown up here. I've spent 35 years living in the same 1.5 mile radius. My parents lived just up the street from where I'm at now, and we've watched as apartment complex after apartment complex has come into District 1, and we've seen a lot of the impact that's had on the neighborhood as we've lost that balance between single-family homes and the multifamily homes, and it really, at least from my perspective, it really does affect what we're trying to accomplish with the general plan, where we've tried to brand the city as the home of the good neighbor, and where you don't have that right balance between the folks who are a little more fluid, moving in, moving out, and the folks who are a little more settled. When that balance gets disturbed, it seems to disturb kind of what we're trying to accomplish as a city. So I'm, like Councilmember Haig, I read over this a few times, trying to think what the implications would be. I was also concerned, as some other council members have mentioned, with the impact this will have on the development of future apartment complexes. And as Mr. Rasmussen pointed out, I wondered what the effect would be on the existing apartment complexes. However, I'm not sure if it would lend people to not take care of the apartment complexes because they're the only thing in town, or if because they are the only thing in town, it would drive up their rates, allowing them to ask a premium, and consequently they'd be trying to pull in kind of higher end clientele and maximize their profits that way rather than maximize profits by ignoring ongoing maintenance. So I'm not convinced of either argument really, so in my mind it's kind of a wash. But I fall back on the idea of where is this going to put us as development, as the city as a whole is concerned. As you read through the report from staff, we've seen the mix go from 12.5% of our housing is multifamily to 17, then 22.5. I worry that we leave too much leeway open because, as we've seen, it'll just continue to rush forward, and it's not long till we're 25, 27, 30%. A third of our inhabitants could be of a rather transient nature, and that, in my mind, would undermine the goal of the general plan. So I'd be in favor of this ordinance, probably at the 1783 mix that's been proposed.
Councilmember Southworth.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I guess I'd say up front that I am in agreement of the concept of an ordinance that is not named cap and trade, but does what we think it will do. But I'm a little conflicted because of, as a supporter of the free market, I like to see the market work itself out. And I like to see that, we look at as this stacks up and those numbers are huge. And you got to think that, okay, there's only so much demand. And this is where I become conflicted. Well, demand is not just inside of our cities, but throughout. And so the timing is a concern for me, because if we flood our market with high density, and we're filling a demand across the region, really, the valley, you might even a little bit further, I don't know how far you go, but we're filling that demand, and then are we overcompensating for somebody else that's not building it as fast? And vice versa, if we slow down, if that makes sense, if we slow down the building and let somebody else fill that demand. And so that's where I get conflicted there. But really what I would like to really understand are what are these unintended consequences? What are we really encouraging? Is it that we are discouraging high apartments? Or are we just saying we want a higher grade? Are we going to end up with a greater amount of townhomes as opposed to condos, or vice versa? Or what is it? I haven't spent enough time with it to know, and maybe the rest of you have. I don't know. I don't know. This is a pretty new concept. Those are some of the things I'd like to take some time and think through. But I like the concept, especially the grading. The cap, you look at these numbers, 2,600 that are stacked up. Now, to be fair, we throw out the 11,000 number. This is not 2,600 next year or the year after that. This could be 4, 5, 6. I don't know how many years down the road till these are done. So you kind of have to compare apples to apples there. The 11,000 will come over time. So is 2,600, but they're going to continue to stack up. So some kind of cap, some kind of slow it down so that we don't become the magnet, or we don't feel the demand that should be borne by the rest of the valley. That we ease into this and we fill our portion of that demand, and not, because when we do that, like I said before, when we fill beyond our portion, then we're allowing somebody else to, I don't know if that's kind of a complicated way to say this, but we're allowing somebody else to not build as much because we're going to take up that demand. I don't want to do that. So I guess I like the concept. I want to do something here, but I want to understand what the unintended consequences may be. Thank you.
Councilman McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry to jump in again. I had 2 other thoughts come to mind that I want to share. Number one, instead of, at least for myself, instead of thinking of this as a cap and grade plan, I've been thinking of this as the balanced housing development plan. That's how I'm thinking of this one. And number 2, Councilmember Southworth, you brought up a good point about allowing the market to work itself out. And I had that same thought, but in this case it's a little bit different because we're working with a finite, limited resource, and there are a number of externalities that are involved. I think of this kind of like atmospheric emissions from plants. Somebody may be able to manufacture something, they put stuff up in the air, well, that affects everybody around them. Maybe there's others who could find a more efficient way to do it, but in reality it probably is going to cost them a little bit more to find a way to do it without discharging the particles into the atmosphere. So there needs to be a little bit of neighborhood involvement, or in this case municipal government involvement, to make sure that things stay in balance, stay in check. So that, I had that same thought, but that was the kind of thought process I took. It's similar to other activities where there's externalities that the person who is engaged in the market directly is not the one who's bearing all of the costs, and it really does fall on the neighborhood, the city as a whole. So.
Externalities, now you're talking like an economist. Great.
Councilmember Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like the 8317 is a good mark. I mean, we started out at 12, we ignored 12. And then we ignored the next number, and the next number after that. And we became that city of apartments. There are some very nice ones in this city, and there are some that aren't very nice at all. Mr. Rasmussen said maybe if we, didn't allow any more apartments due to this figure, maybe the apartment owners would then let them go, not paint them, not put in repairs, not put in carpet. I believe that if they built a really fine apartment complex, they're not going to do that because they've already put money into it and they want to get their money back out of it. They let it go, the people are going to move. And so I don't think that that is something that is very worrisome to me. I feel like we don't allow enough single-family housing on the upper level. when people do move out of apartments, and they do. They don't always stay in apartments. Sometimes they're looking for the nicer house, the more upgrade. And I think we need to allow that, to provide that for them, and not have them leave our city because they can find it elsewhere. So I am in favor of this.
Councilmember Stover.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, like Councilmember McConaughey, a lot of the multifamily development that's happened recently has also happened in my area with the Serengeti Apartments, the Highlands area. I've got the Sunset Ridge Apartments, and all the Wilshire Place. All that's happened in my area. So you know, I'm kind of sensitive to this item too, but I'm really worried about unintended consequences of this ordinance. You know, I like the ordinance in concept, especially the part where we have the grade aspect, where we're holding developers to a high standard. We're telling them that we really want high quality products in our city, but I worry about the unintended consequences of a cap on single family. I've seen problems arise where people put conservation easements on their property with the intent of keeping it open space and beautiful and preservation, all that kind of stuff. And 5 and 10 years down the road, you know, if something happens and you can't change your mind. And I'm really worried without some sort of mechanism in for the vested units, or for how TODs are covered, or whether we're looking at the ratio a different way, or what. I feel uncomfortable moving forward with it as it's been prepared.
Councilmember Nichols.
He's talking. Can we look at the exemptions? Is that okay?
You seemed really anxious. Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, my thinking is a little more in line with what Councilman Councilman Stoker has said, in that the 8317, however much that I like it, we will never get there. Even if we build out every acre of this city, single family dwellings, I don't think it's possible. That being said, I mean, if that's really what we want, I guess that's the direction we go. I like Councilman Stoker's approach in that because TODs are such a special area. I mean, it's an area that's designated for transit and for high density housing. Its purpose is high density and move a lot of people. And if we were to keep the ratio of 8317, which I like, and exclude the TODs, that's maybe an approach we could work that doesn't impact the development community as much. Likewise, what the mayor suggested, maybe starting with a ratio of today, I don't like that as much, but I think it's a reasonable approach. I think maybe excluding the TOD is what I prefer out of that ratio, and then keeping the 8317, which means really we're still not going to develop anything, but it at least gives the developers an avenue through which in time we can get down that road. And then secondarily, I think I would prefer what the mayor was suggesting.
Councilmember Sutton.
Sorry. You know, when I look at this here, I guess I'd stay out front. You know, I look at the numbers, and if we just put a cap and said no more, I wouldn't have much heartburn. I just don't think it's reasonable. I don't think it would last. But when I look at what the exceptions are here, and this is what I'm talking about, unintended consequences, and I'm trying to be really brief. I think you end up probably moving, there's only so much space to TODs. That's going to fill up, then you're done. Okay, now senior housing, when you townhomes, condos maybe, and I look at, you're going to have multifamily for disabled persons, low and moderate income housing, and then you kind of funnel. We're just creating a funnel, and is that what we're going to end up with? And is that what we want? So that's what I'm talking about, unintended consequences, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't think that's what we want to do. And I understand why those are there. I understand why those are there. You can't be excluded. Well, I think I understand. I don't like it, but I think I understand. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
I would applaud the staff for bringing this back since our discussion. I believe that they've put a lot of thought, effort into what we have before us today. It's a hard decision. I think that we're bound to make some kind of decision tonight. You know, our moratorium is going to end, and I don't want to see a mad rush for developments of that order. So I think that unfortunately tonight I think we're tasked with allowing staff to know what the process that we want to go forward with. Please.
Mayor, when does the moratorium end?
We researched that earlier today, and it does end on the 14th of November.
Tom, I had just one question, or maybe it's for Ray. These exemptions, they are exempted from the count, as I understand it.
They're exempted from the cap, yes, that's correct.
But the grade system would still stay in place even for all 6 of these. Is that accurate?
No, but the forthcoming architectural urban design controls would apply.
Now, I asked a similar question at the beginning of the item, whether or not if you were to build these items, whether they count against the ratio. And I was told they do.
That's correct, and I think you can adjust that. We'd have to find a spot in the ordinance to modify that language, but I think you can adjust that. If you wanted to exempt from the calculation of the cap on the other side of the equation, absolutely, we can do that.
That's kind of why I was saying that we needed to start with the ratio today, because we know that we have some transit-oriented developments that are slated for certain areas. We know that we want to encourage senior housing. We just want the upgraded. And again, I'm not. I think that we've had our fair share of multifamily to this point, but I want to be fair to. I think that the next generation is a little more slated to have multifamily style housing. They don't care about yards in some degree, so I think we have to have that component. I just want to make sure that the grading system is such that when we get the next multifamily project that isn't already approved the way it is, we get a quality product like Mr. Rasmussen had stated. I think that, I guess the architectural portion of this can be dealt with on that. So again, I urge someone to come with a motion that we can look at, because I believe that the staff needs some, oh, sorry, I didn't see your light, please.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not a motion, rather just a little bit of additional thought. I like some of the ideas that have been shared about excluding the TSOD count. If there's an exemption for a building, let's exempt that from the calculation as well. Since that's where we want density to occur, it seems like we'd almost be penalizing the rest of the city when that does happen. So I think we should probably exclude TSOD counts as we're looking at our single to multifamily housing ratio. The other thought I had is more of a question to dovetail with Council Member Southworth's comment about, are we creating a funnel for these other exemptions? Do we really want any exemptions other than TSOD?
I certainly think we want senior housing for sure. And occupied townhouses, I think they are owner occupied. I think that those should.
I think the Fair Housing Act would require us to have some of those.
Councilmember Haga, well, Councilmember McConaughey is thinking.
I'm going to make the motion based on the findings set forth in the staff report and upon evidence and explanations received today. I move the City Council approve ordinance 1431, including the proposed text amendment to Title 13 as approved by the Planning Commission.
Councilmember Stoker, we have a motion on the table. Councilmember Stoker.
I'll wait and see if there's a second.
Point of clarification on the motion. Does that include the calculations as described here, or does that exclude TSOD?
For my understanding is TSOD are exempt. Am I right? Or?
Not under the current way it's written, but are you saying that these exemptions would stay in place then? Under your motion?
Yes.
I'm not putting words in your mouth.
Under your motion, would this type of construction, and specifically TSOD, count in that single multifamily ratio?
You're saying it's exempt, right?
Yeah.
These 6 items are exempt under his motion.
So when we're counting the number of homes, the number of residences in the valley, these would all be, they're exempt from the restrictions here, but they're also exempt from being included in that calculation, or they would be included in the 1783 calculation. I don't think I'm asking my question very well.
I can help. The intent of this section B is really to exempt from calculation of the annual cap. If the council desires to also exempt them from the counting overall, that's kind of some new language that we would have to prepare and insert.
And that's exactly where I was going with my question. If this motion was meant to exempt these particular items from that count.
Yeah, from that accounting, we can do that, if that's part of the motion.
Well, everybody just wants to be clear on what yours, before a second would be in order. I think they want to make sure that, so you're talking about these 6 would be exempted from the total percentage?
Yeah.
Or I'm not.
Well, but you want me to explain the motion from my understanding that the SOD is the city center, is over by Jordan Valley Medical Center. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then yes, I would count those as exempt. Because we want, first of all, I want senior housing there. I want townhomes in all these locations. And now, not, I don't think we have to cap them. So my motion, if I'm saying it right, is these are exempt from being capped.
I think there's two, we're looking at this two different ways. There's the exemption from them being capped, and then there's the whether or not they're counted in the ratio. Right now, the way that the staff prepared the report, they are counted in the ratio. And so even though this may not, you may still go out and build this tomorrow because they're not counted against the cap. When it comes to another development comes along, these items will be counted against the ratio on whether or not future development can happen in the first place.
That's correct, Councilmember Stoker.
And so I think there was some confusion there. I think we're looking at that. I think we're blurring the two lines there.
I'll either take an amendment or withdraw the motion, and I agree with that.
You gonna withdraw?
Yeah.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we adopt ordinance 14-31, amending the tally count of the total homes occupied homes and multifamily units in the house, removing TOD from that equation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Nichols and a second by Councilmember McConaughey.
Can I offer a friendly amendment?
Sure.
That we exempt all 6 of these qualifications from the calculation so that we don't end up funneling towards these items ahead. Let me clarify there. If we are only exempting the transit-oriented developments from the ratio calculation, then we're going to end up with some of these being built ahead of more legitimate quality projects. And I would say if these exemptions need to happen, let's include all of them, let's exempt all of them from the ratio so that we can aim towards the quality projects.
Before I accept that amendment, can I ask staff, is that a very easy ratio to come up with?
It would present some challenges, but I think we can zero in on it. It would take us a little bit of work to essentially look at every multifamily development in the city and matriculate it. See if it fits any one of these 6 categories. If it not, then it would be counted towards the ratio. If it is, it would be not counted towards the ratio. But it's achievable.
I accept that amendment.
Okay. So we have a motion, the second, discussion to the motion. Councilmember Hanson.
I would withdraw my second based on if the idea is that exempting these from the count is going to prevent driving developers to these, that's not the effect that would have. The effect of excluding these from the count opens up the rest of the city for apartment complexes to be built elsewhere. People are going to be driven to these regardless because it's exempt from the cap. So exempting the others from the count is only going to open up more of the city to more apartment complexes because these would no longer be counted. It won't have the effect that it sounded like you were trying to describe.
Okay. We have a motion. If there's no second, it will die for lack of a second.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Tom, aren't multifamily for disabled persons by law, we have to allow those?
Well, yeah, I think there's a number of these that are driven by other parts of the federal housing code and by the state of Utah requirement to have an affordable housing plan. And we have to report that housing plan to the state of Utah every 2 years, I think. So that's where, I think that's probably where number 5 and 6 come from, primarily.
Well, I know the law has changed so that disabled doesn't mean you're just physically disabled. Disabled covers a lot of different disabilities, and by law, we have to allow them. We cannot exempt them.
Yeah, good point. In fact, we'll be bringing back some ordinance changes rather shortly regarding group homes to the council as recommended by additional legal research that we've done recently.
Let's see. May I make a motion?
Can I make a comment first?
Please.
I'll take that motion off the table, but the moratorium, do we have the option to an extension? It's just a short-term extension, or we don't exhaust that? Okay, so I was going to suggest that we take the motion that Councilor Nichols placed there. But what I want to see is if we take those out, what do the ratios look like? And what does that open the door to or close? I would suggest that we take that motion and then come back at our next council meeting, table this until that time, and then so we could look at those numbers and see what happened there, and kind of get a better feel of what it is we're really doing. The numbers are a little fuzzy when you start taking all these out of the calculation. What does that do? But do we essentially just increase those the numbers that we're going to allow? So I was a little fuzzy, but go ahead here.
Technically, our next council meeting is November 7th. But
I would make a motion that we adopt the resolution the ordinance 14-31 as written, with the exception of, I would like to change the ratio from 13 to 83 to 77-23, what it exists today. I'll leave all the other things in the, I would keep the city at the same ratio it is today, perpetually into the future until some council decided to change that ratio.
I can second that.
Okay, we do have a motion by Mayor Rolfe and a second by Council Member Hanson. Council Member Stoker.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I kind of intrigued by what's, I believe it was Councilmember Southworth was talking about, where if we were to remove those 6 items that are exempted, if we remove all of those from the calculation citywide, what is our ratio? And if we can set that as our starting ratio today. So if we go through, let me kind of restate to make sure, I don't know if I said that clearly enough. If we go throughout the entire city today, we discount all of the residential units that fall within those 6 exemptions. What is our current single-family to multifamily ratio? If we make that our starting point, and then we take the 6 exemptions, don't count them against the future ratio, where are we? Are we, maybe we're down to 80-20 or 83-17 or.
I can help with that a little bit. I believe Greg did some sensitivity analysis on our housing stock related to these 7,300 units. Now keep in mind that really the TOD is not a historical issue. That's an issue into the future, because we essentially have no real TOD units. But we do have some senior units, and we do have some other units that are part of townhomes and twin homes and disabled, and there probably are a few housing authority units. So we think that number is fairly small. Yeah, I mean, it would surprise me if that number was greater than 1,000.
Yeah, my guess is you wouldn't even break 1% at all. So if we're proposing 23 today, it'd probably just go down to 22 at a max.
So basically where we exist today. So there's a motion on the table. Any other discussion of that motion? We'll see how it goes.
I do have a question. So my question is, though, that's a good point, but it's been a limited number. But once we put these exemptions in, are we driving it to that? And that's what I'm saying. And to the motion, I would like to support. I'm not going to, but I want to see this happen. I just want to look at these. I want this to come back again. I want another shot at it because I want to take what we talked about before, rework those numbers and see what it actually does. I don't want to pass it. Hey, remember the healthcare? Let's pass it and see what's in it. I don't want to do that. I want to see it first.
Let's go.
Okay, Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson.
Yes.
Councilmember Haga.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Southworth.
Oh, well, since that's 4, yes.
Okay, Councilmember Stoker.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
No.
Well, passes 6-1 in favor.
Thank you. Moving on to the final public hearing item, receive public input and consider for approval ordinance 14-32, amending the 2009 West Jordan Municipal Code, making miscellaneous amendments to Title 13 and adding language relating to a new airport zone and special purpose districts, citywide applicability, City of West Jordan. Humbert.
Mayor and Council, this is an economic development initiative. It's also somewhat of a functional initiative. As you know, airports are unique. They serve as an interface between surface and air transportation. The present zoning for South Valley Regional and the city is public facilities. While that works for a lot of other public uses, such as schools and colleges and maybe a hospital, it's not that conducive to an airport like South Valley Regional. So the current zoning is somewhat problematic with supporting commercial uses in support of aviation. So we've come to a position where we think it's important to address entrepreneurialism as an ancillary use to the airport for future economic development purposes, not only for the east side of the field adjacent to Jordan Landing, but also open up some opportunities on the west side of the field as well. So we're intending to bring back companion ordinance to change the zoning map, if this is approved, to take all of the airport district and zone it to this special purpose. I'll turn the time over to Ray McCandless.
Thank you. The only this thing to add, that I'd like to add is just that this was taken to the Planning Commission, and it also has been reviewed by the Airport Authority. So, unless you have any questions about the ordinance itself, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Yes. Councilmember Nichols. Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, the packet referred to the, I'm going from memory. It talked about minutes from the Department of Airports meeting. And it said that it was incorporated into Section B. So I just wanted to confirm specifically what was that. So when I look at what was their recommendation by the Department of Airports?
Oh, what they've done is we sent them a copy of the draft code. They sent it back to us with their changes. We've incorporated those changes into the...
Was there anything major?
No, it was all pretty minor stuff.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Ray? Yes.
One point I ought to draw some attention to, we have military use as a conditional use. Let me clarify this a little bit. My experience comes mostly from working with the Navy, and I had a fairly sizable base inside our corporate limits. We could not influence the site planning or activities of planning on the Navy base. They did have some requirements to meet any local environmental laws. So if we established a local environmental law that may have influence on the airport field, that's probably something that they would be subject to. Everything else in terms of parking ratios and setbacks and all the other bulk dimensional criteria, they're generally exempt.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. And this has been a long-awaited change for me personally. I think it's the right thing to do at this point in time, and I do get several phone calls a week about our military training exercises, takeoff and landings, and all I can say is that's the sound of freedom. Councilmember Southworth.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve.
We have a public hearing.
That's a public hearing. I'm going to slow down.
Just one moment. Let's see what happens.
Just practice.
If there's no other questions, we'll now open the public hearing on item 7C. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Now seeing none, we will move to Councilmember Southworth. We'll close the public hearing and move to
Thank you, Mayor. With all the dignity I can muster, I move to approve.
Second. We have a motion by Councilmember Southworth and a second by Councilmember Nichols. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Mayor Robb?
Yes.
Councilmember Haga?
Yes.
Councilmember Stoker?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Southworth?
Aye.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Okay, We just need a motion to continue item D
So
to
moved.
November 19th.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Nichols, second by Councilmember McConaughey. Discussion? Seeing none? Let's vote.
Councilmember Southworth?
Aye.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stoker?
Yes.
Councilmember Haga?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Mayor Well?
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Okay, that concludes the public hearing portion. Moving to business items, I would like, unless anyone's opposed, I would like to swap 8B for 8A so that we for sure can get B discussed and done tonight. I think the A item may take a while based on earlier discussion, so is anyone opposed to me changing the order?
I even have a motion.
Do we need a motion? Do we need a motion to do that? I'm just changing the order then.
Perfect.
We're moving to 8B, discussion and possible action regarding authorization to advertise and hire a full-time executive assistant position in the city manager's office. Bryce.
Mayor, thank you for making that transition. You almost got me crying there just with the happiness to know that we can talk about this. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but I've spoken with many of you, and during this transition time, the demands of this job have been a little bit more than what I anticipated. I spend most of my days here from 7 till 6 and go home and work on emails after I get a bite to eat until 10 o'clock, and that's just not conducive to a good family lifestyle, checking to see if your teenager had dinner or not. So I'm asking for some assistance to at least start off with this administrative assistant. We know that we have Arlene tied up extensively with walk-ins, phone calls, things like that, and we envision having this position not only watching everything that goes on that Arlene's been doing for I don't know how many years, but having this person be ready to take the helm of those kind of responsibilities, but also to just evaluate 2 full-time positions in that office and what that would do. We are prepared to work things out so that we can stay within budget. One of the things that I would like to request is whether you would be accepting of us starting out by advertising this internally. I know that goes against the grain of what we've typically been doing in advertising, but I feel that we have a lot of employees that are qualified, and that would really take away the learning curve. So I'm just interested in knowing if you would be willing to entertain that thought. And I'll just use an example. I sent an email to a city manager a couple of days ago telling him I wouldn't be able to meet him for an appointment, and his administrative assistant sent a reply saying, hey, no problem, we'll take care of that, we'll reschedule it. I mean, I was just overwhelmed with the thought of how would that be if I could just forward emails like that to someone and say, just please take care of this and let me know what the arrangements are, instead of sitting there trying to do my own schedule and those kind of things at night. So if that's not enough explanation, I can go on for hours, but it would really help if we could do this. Any questions?
I would just like to make a statement as well, because of what I witness on a day-to-day basis, what goes on this level, and Bryce is absolutely right. I know that it's the policy of the city to advertise both internally and externally, but I still believe that this one, I hope that we could allow this to be at least advertised internally and see if there's an applicant because of the nature of this particular position. So, Councilmember Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. Will this person also be assisting the mayor as he needs?
It will be your assistant, just like you have Arlene to turn to for scheduling and things. If any of you have emails that you would like to have responded to, you have questions, I'd appreciate if I'm still copied so that I'm aware of what's going on, or send them to me and I can forward them to this individual once we get them on board. But I envision this person serving all of us.
Thank you. I know the mayor has specified that he needs some help, so I wanted to make sure this person is also going to fulfill that.
Well, and I would like that person to keep all of us communicating together much better than what I've been able to do. And so, yeah, it's a magnet to pull us all together communication-wise.
Councilmember Southworth.
Yeah, I just, the one exception I would bring up is, I'm ready to make a motion, but we're not to that point to approve it, but I still think it needs to be external and internal. We've done, and I just want to be consistent, because we've done that for, this is a secretarial job, I don't want to diminish the importance of it, but some of our department heads, and we do that, and I think we should be fair all across the board. Put that out there, and if the best candidate is here, then the best candidate will get it. I don't think there's anything to fear there. You only have something to gain by being consistent and throwing a broad net. So that's the only exception. Other than that, I'm fully on board. Thank you.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. This time I find myself in 100% agreement with Councilmember Southworth. I am very opposed to the idea of posting just internally only. I don't think it sends the appropriate message to the rest of staff, where we have said, look internal and external. Oh wait, but this one's for us, so we've got some ideas, so we're only going to look internal. Plus, by doing that, we have no idea who else is out in the market. There may be somebody who's worked as a city clerk for years and is retired, but wants to come back and do something a little bit.
Another city clerk? Kidding?
I'm just saying, we don't know what kind of experience is out there, and there may be very, very qualified candidates, and I don't want to eliminate the possibility of bringing them in, and I want to be as consistent as possible with the policy, so I think we should do both internal and external. And as Councilmember Southworth said, those who are internal, who are applying, obviously have a huge advantage already, because they already know the system, so they know the people, they know the different projects that are in place. They already have a huge leg up. This would only further validate that if somebody internally were chosen, they are hands down the best qualified person, period. There's no questioning. You can go back to the public and support the decision, as well as the rest of staff, and say, yes, we are being consistent, and this came out to be the best. So that's my first thought. I'd rather do internal and external. Number two, reading over the background discussion, this is something that really drives me crazy. We talked about there used to be a senior executive assistant, but the position was eliminated, so they moved over to the Good Landlord program. But they don't really work in the Good Landlord program. It's more on business licensing. So when we look at the budget, it looks like we're funding somebody 100% for the Good Landlord program, when really they're somewhere else. It's just messing on the bookkeeping side, and I would hope that we could clean some of that up, because I mean, it talks here about the position being cut, but we still kept the person, so maybe there was another position cut somewhere else or something, they just shifted something around, but that's not clear to me at all what happens. I'd like to try and be a little more transparent in how we're reporting who's being funded for what positions. So those are the two things I would say. Number one, internal and external. Number two, if we could please clean that up. This has been driving me crazy for 3 years. That would be awesome.
Councilmember Southworth.
Thank you, Mayor. In order to end this meeting on time, I would move that we approve this advertising moving forward, and simultaneously going internal and external.
Second. I have a motion and a motion by Councilmember Southworth and a second by Councilmember Nichols. Discussion. Councilmember Reagan.
Yeah, well, I'll just say my comments. So, as one that is always talking to executives, the city manager is our executive with the mayor, and I can see from trying to get appointments the value of an assistant, not only for the city manager, but I think for us too. It's been suggested to me sometimes that I don't include the council. This person, I think, will, and you'll be invited to the meetings that are important. And personally, again, I'm making my comments. I'm not opposed to the motion, but from working in the private sector, if you have a good person in your house, hire them. And if we do, I don't see the point about going out. Now, if that's our city policy, I understand we have to follow, but I'm strongly proponent that getting some help in this office. We need to train somebody to somehow absorb the knowledge that Arlene has. She's gonna go someday, and we need that person to absorb that. It's amazing what she does, so I would like to amend this motion and say that we select from within our own city.
You don't accept that?
Amendment?
Yeah.
I didn't hear it, sorry.
Instead of going out
No.
and advertising.
He's back to.
No.
Any other discussion? Let's vote.
Councilmember Hanson,
Yes.
Mayor Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Southworth,
Aye.
Councilmember McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Haga,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Stoker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and please forgive me for at least finding out where you stood on the issue of internal, external. We will gladly advertise that way, so thanks.
Okay, we need a motion to extend the meeting.
Or adjourn?
Gonna move or adjourn, it's up to you.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion we have a motion to adjourn and a second.
Oh, and it's not the payroll. And okay, let's.
Discussion to the motion? All in, let's see, we better do a roll call.
Okay.
Now, you moved to close the meeting, no, it's not that.
Councilmember Stoker,
Yes.
Councilmember Southworth,
Aye.
Mayor Roth,
No.
Councilmember Nichols,
No.
Councilmember Hanson,
Yes.
Councilmember Haga,
No.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Passes 4-3.
We are adjourned.
I was surprised at Ron.